Hello, folks. This is Steve A.B. for y'all. Thought I'd have some fun brainstorming. So this is the YouTube general homepage. Earlier this evening, I watched this video right there. I'm embarrassed for her, Linus Tech Tips. Nothing in this episode is a promotion, nor is it a recommendation. You know who Linus is. Well, he's going to help her rebuild her PC. That's his wife's sister. Now, I've watched one or two videos where Linus worked on computers with his wife. She's pretty smart. And so is her sister. That's an interesting video. It's different than their usual pace on that. So anyway, as I was editing and rendering some more rag chewing episodes this afternoon and this evening, I was more listening to a video rather than watching it about AI. Everything's AI right now, right? And it was on a channel that actually YouTube is trying to kind of lately push down my throat. Keeps coming up. Just called Greylock. This is the official YouTube channel of Greylock, greylock.com. At Greylock, our mission is to help realize rare potential. From idea to iconic. So actually, while I was working...
Let's start a little bit more pragmatic, but then we'll branch out.
I didn't ask them to do that. It's called pushy. I was listening as I'm working away. I was listening to these two gals. So that's the video. That one there from 9 days ago. It's only had 1.4K views. So let's just look. 185 views 15 hours ago, 575 2 days ago, 499 4 days ago. He'd ask a question, but it was these two gals who were talking. They, not to each other. He'd ask the question, and then one would answer at length, not one sentence, 5 minutes, which is the format. And then her. OpenAI Chief Technology Officer Mira Murati. It's the one here on the right. And Stanford, that's Stanford University, one of my classmates from high school got his doctorate at Stanford. Stanford's Dr. Fifi Lee, F-E-I, Lee, joined Greylock partner Reid Hoffman for an insightful conversation on developing safe and human-centered artificial intelligence. Okay. Now this one is only 7 minutes long, and I thought the one I was listening to was longer than that. But the reason why I'm doing this brainstorming, see, all you got to do is just take Fifi Lee. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. Oh, that's a clip from this one. Oh, I was right. This one's a half hour. That's what I thought I was listening to. So this is the one I was listening to. Oh, look at this. Stanford Institute for Economic Something, Fifi Lee, One Immigrant's American Dream. See that one on the upper right-hand corner? It's the same gal. The more human-like artificial intelligence becomes, the more we understand about our brains actually work. Da-da-da-da-da. Her actual first segment there, she talked about something coming up really soon having to do with 1,000 aspects of robotics. Not the kind of machine robotics that are working building cars in the Toyota factory down in Louisiana, but replacing humans at work, on the street, and at home. So after listening to these two, Sequoia Capital professor, co-director of the Stanford Institute for Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence, and professor by courtesy of Operations, Information, and Technology at the Graduate School of Business. She's in the computer science department. Pardon me. You can get a PDF of her curriculum vitae. Served as Stanford's AI Lab, director of Stanford's AI Lab from 2013 to 2018. So AI is not new. During her sabbatical from Stanford from January 2017 to September 2018, she was vice president at Google and served as chief scientist of the AI's artificial intelligence, ML, something language, at Google Cloud. They would use the cloud, I'm sure, for the computing base. It's big enough. Dr. Fifi Lee obtained her BA degree in physics from Princeton in 1999 with high honors, and her PhD in electrical engineering from California Institute of Technology, Caltech, in 2005. She joined Stanford as an assistant professor in 2009. Before that, she was on the faculty at Princeton from 2007 to 2009, and before that at Urbana, Illinois. But this is all the American side. See, when I see somebody like that, I'm asking myself, how long has her family been in the United States? Now, she's about 46 or 47. She was born in 1976. Li was born in Beijing, China. How many people do you know have you met in your life more than just a handshake passing, born in Beijing? One of them was I was taking a class in Raleigh, evening class. It was being held in a high school. They were using the high school classroom. It was a computer science topic. And the class was about a little more than a dozen people. And one of the people was a gal from Beijing. And I can remember when I asked her what she did for a living, she said she was a Java script programmer, which in the 1990s, I played around a little bit with JavaScript in a browser context when I was learning HTML and web and stuff like that. And I wondered why somebody as smart as her wasn't programming in something like Java. Oh, so that places it. Just go look when Java came out, and that's approximately the year. Of course, she's a lot smarter than me, and I mean that. If you know what the position and importance of JavaScript programming is to the whole web today. And yeah, when I think back on it, she was probably the smartest person in the room. She was born in Beijing. One of the things I remember her talking about was Chinese communists killing. I made a video about this once. All the sparrows. And the result. Now, I haven't rehearsed this. Wikipedia, 4-Pest Campaign. The 4-Pest Campaign was one of the first actions taking the Great Leap Forward in China from 1958 to 1962. Now, she wasn't born, but this speaks of an era that her parents lived through. The gal I'm talking about, and actually Dr. Fifi Li also. The 4 pests to be eliminated were rats, flies, mosquitoes, and sparrows. By April 1960, Chinese leaders, people like Biden, but Mao at the top, they're experts at everything, right? Chinese leaders changed their opinion in part due to the influence of ornithologists who pointed out that sparrows The 4-Pest campaign was introduced in 1958 as a hygiene campaign to eradicate the pests responsible for the transmission of pestilence and disease. Sparrows, especially the Eurasian tree sparrow, who ate grain, seed, and fruit. So they wanted to get rid of the sparrows, and they told everybody, if you see a sparrow, kill it. Sparrows were suspected of consuming 4 pounds of grain per sparrow per year. Sparrows' nests were destroyed, eggs were broken, and the chicks were killed. Millions of peoples organized. This is the way that, think about today and some of the stuff that goes on. Only now let's go back to the Cultural Revolution. China. Mao. Millions of people organized into groups and hit noisy pots and pans to prevent sparrows from resting in their nests, with the goal of causing them to drop dead from exhaustion. In addition to these tactics, citizens simply shot the birds down from the sky. The campaign depleted the sparrow population, pushing it to near extinction in China. Now we read the next section. By April 1960, Chinese leaders changed their opinion in part due to the influence of ornithologists, and they name him, who pointed out that sparrows ate a large number of insects as well as grains. While the campaign to kill the sparrows was meant to increase yields, concurrent droughts and floods, as well as the lack of sparrow population, decreased rice yields. There was mass starvation, mass crop failures. Why? No birds to eat most of the insects to keep them from devastating the crops. And so the insects geometrically increased and ate everything. Think of the plague of the locusts like that. Aren't the Chinese smart? Those political leaders at the top, weren't they smart? Wasn't Mao the genius? In the same month, Mao Zedong ordered a campaign against the sparrows to end. Sparrows were replaced with bed bugs, as the extermination of sparrows had upset the ecological balance, which subsequently resulted in surging locust and insect populations that destroyed crops due to a lack of natural predators. With no sparrows to eat them, locust populations ballooned, swarming the country and compounding the ecological problems already caused by the Great Leap Forward, including widespread deforestation and misuse of poison and pesticides. Ecological imbalance is credited with exacerbating the Great Chinese Famine. The Great Chinese Famine occurred between 1959 and 1960. This is what the gal in the class was referring to. Between 1959 and 1961, location, half the country. Death rate was highest, 18% of the population dead. Another province, 15% of the population died. Another province, 13%. Another province, 11%. How many total deaths between 1959 and 1961? Because the big boys at the top are brilliant and you do what they say. Am I talking about Mao or am I talking about Washington? The total death toll is estimated to be somewhere between 15 and 55 million people. I could tell by the way the gal spoke, the one in the class, that it was the reason why they got out of China and was never going to go back. Too many crazy mass hysterias, one after another. Now, we're talking about in the 1990s. Told you once that when I was in college, I met a Chinese, this is 1984, a Chinese maize geneticist, crop breeder from China that came to visit in the United States for a year. And during that same period of time, well, because he worked at a university and he wore glasses, the students went down on him and he was sent to a re-education camp where he was forced to harvest rice by hand because he was an educated person. But then later, with the change of things, finally, he was rehabilitated. It doesn't just happen in China. Think about it. Now, you're wondering, why'd you go off on all these things? She was born in Beijing. If you watch this video, you can't tell that. Not by her accent. Sounds very American to me. Sounds like my accent. So she got a very high IQ and she's a good mimic. She got all her education here. So let's see if we can find out anything about her early life. Let's see if there's a Wikipedia. Because they usually have a section called Early Life. Wikipedia, Fifi Lee. Lee was born in Beijing, China in 1976. So she was born during the Gang of Four chaos, something like that. Remember I said about the Chinese maize breeder? I said that was 1984. Mao's little red book sent him to harvest rice in a remote village, prison, effectively, re-education camp. Born in Beijing, grew up in Chengdu. I don't know where that is. Let's find out where that province is. Usually they have a map. Whoop. Hang on. See how concentric it is? Let's see where it is in China. Okay. So where's Beijing? Beijing is up here. Beijing is up here, but she grew up here. You know why somebody might move to there? For the age of turmoil, they were either exiled or it was a safer place to be. That's a guess. The guess is best based on Chinese people I've known from communist China who came out of there at different times. When she was 12, so 1976 plus 12 is right when I knew that professor who came to the States for 1 year, who was a maze professor. Did you follow what I'm saying? Her parents were of the same age group as that guy. But it doesn't mention what her parents did. But she was born in Beijing, but for some reason they are in the, it's like going and living in the middle of the Nevada desert. You're in New York, but you moved to the Nevada desert. Wonder why. And why? How did they get out? And why did they come to the States? Well, there was a kind of just as that guy was able to come to the States, there were some people who were able to get out. Like the gal I knew in that night course who was a JavaScript programmer and who I can remember one time made a disparaging remark about the communist regime in China and the Great Sparrow thing. It killed probably it killed people in her family. That's a guess. So she did all these things, and oh, that's interesting. Lee majored in physics but studied computer science and engineering as an undergraduate at Princeton. High honors, AB, physics, completed her senior theory. Her BS senior thesis was auditory binaural parallelogram difference. You know what? A new computational model for Huggins dichotic pitch. Oh, here we go. This sounds like people I've known. During her years at Princeton, she returned home most weekends. I never read this. I haven't read this before. I like this. She returned home most weekends so that she could work in her parents' dry cleaning store. When I worked for that big internationally operating IT company, there was a gal who sat in the cubicle across the aisle from me. She was born in Vietnam. Her brother got out as a boat person. This is after the communist victory. And after he got to the States, he was able to work with church groups. And there was a way where her family and her got out of Vietnam and they came to Black Mountain, North Carolina. And her parents worked on farms there as minimum wage day workers with help from the local churches that sponsored them to the United States. Her three brothers and she ended up getting Bachelor of Science degrees in information technology. Do you see the parallel between that and what I just read? So she went to Caltech and she received a PhD in electrical engineering. And her dissertation was visual recognition, computational models, and human psychophysics. And it names who her major professor was, dissertation supervisor was, and she was on a fellowship. And then she became an assistant professor of electrical at Urbana. And then she was promoted and then full professor there. Oh, and she joined Stanford in, oh, wait a minute, between 2009 to 2000, she became a full professor. I think she was pretty smart. Stanford's a pretty steep hill. She became founding co-director of Stanford's level initiative, the Human-Centered AI Institute. Oh, so she got interested in that early on. Da-da-da-da-da-da. I like her. If only because I've known other Asian women, and there have been others, who had, in a very real sense, very similar parallel kinds of family coming to the States and rising up. How lucky we are to get them. And I thought the things that she had to say were interesting, which is why I'm doing this. So who's the other gal? The one with the accent? Because Fifi doesn't have an accent. It's a very American. And she came to the States at age 12. I'm thinking of a friend that I worked with who came from Korea at the age of 12. And she did real well too. Down in So who's the other one? Mira Murati. Now talk about from a different part of the world. Is a United States Albanian-born engineer. United States-based Albanian-born. It's interesting how they write this. United States-based. So does that mean she's not an American citizen? Albanian-born. You know where Albania is, right? You know where you know that it was. You know the history of Albania, right? How many Albanians have you known, actually known, would see each day? I've known two. One was in Israel. He married a kibbutz gal. I know we were, and the other one was here, a gal that I met several times. She had red hair. She's the chief technology officer of OpenAI. We've heard of OpenAI, haven't we? The company develops ChatGPT, an artificial intelligence chatbot. Now, I thought her history was interesting and quite a contrast to the other gal. They're sitting there together. So this one was born a little bit later. She's a little bit younger, 1988 in Vlore, Albania. That's a bay on the Albanian coast across from the heel of the Italian boot. You could swim across. Well, maybe not quite swim. At age 16, she moved. Now, notice the way it said it. She moved to Victoria, Canada at age 16 in order to attend the Lester B. Pearson United World College of the Pacific to complete her high school education. Did she come alone? Did she come with a family? Is it a secret? Nobody knows? I'll bet she came on her own. I'll bet she was sponsored through a church. With that name, I would think that in a majority Muslim country like Albania, she's probably something like Italian descent. It's a guess. Yes, I've known people from Albania. She graduated from the School of Engineering at Dartmouth College in 2012. So she's only been out of school 11 years. And she's the CTO for OpenAI. How's that possible? She has a BS degree and she's the CTO at AI. I can think of a way that would be possible. You probably couldn't measure her IQ. It's a guess. That's a guess. Let's see what kind of work history she had. Career. You know, this is not very much information, but she's only been out of college 11 years. Most people don't get that much traction in 11 years. Murati started her career as an intern at Goldman Sachs that's an investment place. She finished college in 200. Okay, so the junior to senior year, she did an internship at Goldman Sachs. One time, See, I was in Missouri for a time. One time I was flying from Missouri to North Carolina, and on the plane there was a guy sitting in the seat across the aisle, and he had a whole stack of, I could see they were CVs. No, it was the other way around, from here to North Carolina, to Missouri. Yes, because it was in the Triangle area. So he had graduated. He was working at a bank in St. Louis. His alma mater was in the Research Triangle area. I'm not saying whether it was in Raleigh, Chapel Hill, or Durham, but one of those. And I asked him what he was doing, and he said what he did is whenever he'd go back, he'd go to the placement office and he would get the CVs of all of the people about to graduate. Apparently that's a service because they help them find jobs after getting their BS or BA. And I asked him what I wanted to know is that I noticed that some people, you were turning the sheet over immediately, but other ones you would stop and you'd make a check mark or two and you put them in that pile over there with the check marks was like this and the rest of them were like this. And I said, what are you looking for? And he was willing to tell me. He said, my first filter, because he had a stack of like 200, is whether they did any summer internships, and more particularly, was it a different internship, meaning a different business or line of business between each year of college. If they went back to the same place over and over again, I basically wasn't interested in them. They weren't adventurous enough. This is a guy looking for people to come to work at the bank in St. Louis. That's what he told me. I'm explaining internships, why you might want to try to get noticeable internships and maybe different ones between each year of your college and earn money in the summer. So she started her career in 2011 as an intern at Goldman Sachs and took employment at Zodiac Aerospace from 2012 to 2013. Doesn't say as what. Zodiac Aerospace is a French aerospace group founded in 1896 to supply systems and equipment for first time I'm reading this. It had about 100 sites around the globe and employed near 35. 2018, it was acquired by French aerospace and defense company Safran. It's one of the Goldman Sachs to aerospace. What did I tell you about the guy in St. Louis? I haven't read this before. She spent 3 years at Tesla. Well, we've heard of that. What did she do at Tesla? Before joining Leap Motion. I don't know what Leap Motion is. Leap Motion Incorporated was an American company that manufactured and marketed a computer hardware sensor device that supports hand and finger motions as input analogous to a mouse but require. You know the clean room things with the nuclear reactors and they're behind only this. Does it sound like she's jumping all over the place? Just like that guy from the bank was looking for? Do you think he was smart about it? Excuse me for making that kind of association with my own past history. I'm talking about a conversation I had on an airplane around 1985. Okay, then she joined OpenAI in 2018. So that's 5 years ago. So that must have been the very beginning of OpenAI, I'm guessing. Let's see when it's founded. OpenAI was founded 7 years ago in 2015. So it was getting to be 3 years old when she joined in. Okay, so she joined OpenAI, doesn't say what position, later becoming Chief Technology Officer overseeing ChatGPT. She's only been out of school 11 years. She's at basically the top of the most controversial, newsworthy, technology forward company in the world in terms of future technology. Morati's responsibilities include oversight of the company's research and product and safety teams. She's an advocate for the regulation of art. Talk about two really different backgrounds. And they're sitting together there, invited to talk about AI, human factors. This was an interview 7 months ago. So that's before all the big new hullabaloo broke. Wonder what this pair would sound like today, given all of the hoopla that's been going on. Now, how long ago did I start on, hey, watch this AI thing? Was it back in December when I made a video about North Carolina State University computer science graduate students and the professor there starting to be concerned about that there's this thing over at GitHub that the students can use to answer their homework, graduate students can answer their homework assignments with? Did I catch it a little bit early before the big hoopla in the news? I'd like to meet him. Anyway, see, I interpret things in terms of my own past experience because I'll never meet them directly. But as I look at the circumstantial evidence around their backgrounds, I can kind of get a feeling for who they are and why they got to be where they are now. And that would include cases where I go, this doesn't make any sense. Like the Vice President of the United States, as an example. It doesn't make any sense, especially when you listen to her talk. In contrast to these two ladies, when I listen to them talk, I listen to the whole thing for a half hour. That's why I'm doing this episode. Remember what I told you about the top leadership of China? Let's go, Brandon. Stephen and gals, thank you very much. I enjoyed listening to the two of them and their ideas. Steve AB4, y'all. Just brainstorming or brain exploding, saying see you in 73.